is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Greyt podcast, episode 66. On today's episode, 2 weeks ago, I promised that I would give my top 10 home field advantages in college football this week. That I would do that this week because I was very upset with college football 26, the video games ranking. So here I am to do it. I'm not going to lie to you. This is tough. This is tough. Um, and it's tough for a number of reasons. Number one, because there's so many ways you can go about this, and I have only been to two different college football teams games. I've been to an LSU game and I've been to multiple Georgia games. So that's the only in-person experience I really have, and stats can be deceiving. And we'll go through what's – because I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have my top 10 set. I really don't. I know what teams I want in here, but the order is difficult. And so I'm going to kind of work this out through this episode because I need to just talk it out, okay? And we'll go through why, and we'll go through the various things that I've been looking at, okay? I will say this off the bat, okay? I have about 12 teams I'm going to be talking about. 2 honorable mentions, and then 10, the top 10, right? I can already tell you one of the honorable mentions. That's Penn State. I said this 2 weeks ago when I was talking about the video game having Penn State at 2, I think. I have a big issue with that. Penn State over the last 2 years, they have a record of 26-10 at home, which is fine, nothing special. And as I have stated then, and I'm going to state again now, as far as their whiteout games, they're 9-6. I mean, you want to talk about whiteout and how great it is? You're only 9-6. You're barely over 500. I mean, that's embarrassing in my opinion. And I don't think Penn State deserves to be in the top 10. And so they're going to be sitting here at an honorable mention. But now I have to figure out the other team I want as an honorable mention. I think I know what that team's going to be. I think it's going to be Auburn. And I think it has to be for a few reasons. I think Auburn has a very underrated home field advantage. I think Jordan-Hare is never fun to play at as the visiting team. The issue is Auburn hasn't been good these past few years. And even with that considered, they have a positive home field record, but only by 4. They're 20-16. And you just feel like that home field advantage should elevate them more than it has in these past few years because it just simply hasn't done that. I mean, you had the loss to Georgia in 2023. They lost to Mississippi State at home in 2023. Lost to New Mexico State at home in 2023. And it's just those types of things that happen at their home field that is inexcusable and just forces me to not be able to put them in the top 10. So they're going to be the other honorable mention alongside Penn State. Now it gets difficult because I have really nothing set here in the top 10. So let me just go to the top real quick with LSU. So I have been going back and forth. I talked about my issues with people who put LSU at number 1 and why I understand it, and I might even do it myself, but why I think their home field advantage is a little overblown. But the reality is we don't have enough data points to really know if it is. Because as I stated then, and I'll state again now, the SEC and these TV networks pander to the fact that LSU is really good, home field advantage-wise, at night. And it is undeniable, in my opinion, that when it comes to night games, LSU is the best. However, the reality is there's 24 hours in a day. And a lot of teams have to play games at noon and at 3:30. And the fact is, LSU's home field advantage is not number one when you consider a game at noon and 3:30. And it has shown that over the years. Okay, let's look. I am back in 2021. So I've gone back through 2024, 2023, 2022, 2021. And in each of those years, you pretty much see LSU at home play 1 to 2 games not at night, which is crazy, by the way. Crazy. They play less home games. Wait, how do I want to phrase that? They play less non-nighttime home games than they do cupcakes every year. It's insane. But back here in 2021, you have a game at noon at home against Florida, which they won, although Florida did score 42 points. But then the following week, sorry, I was looking at that wrong. That was the only game they had at home. I saw the Ole Miss one. I thought that was at home. That was on the road. But the Florida one was the only one at home before nighttime, and it was at noon. And it was 49-42 is crazy, by the way. But that was the only one that was at home before 7 o'clock. Then we go to 2022. Let's see, 2022. You got, and this is the time where I really started to think this about LSU. They had a noon game at home in 2022 against Tennessee and got their doors blown off 40-13 by Tennessee. Now, the following week, they played a home game at 3:30 against Ole Miss and won. But I don't think that makes up for getting drubbed. And you might think, oh, well, maybe that was a down year for LSU. They didn't really have a good team. They went 10-4. They were in the SEC championship and had Jaden Daniels on their team. Don't tell me it was an off year or anything. The discrepancy in this whole thing is that, ironically, their earliest in the day game is the game where they got absolutely annihilated. Just interesting. 40-13. 2023. Let's see. Let's see. In 2023, they had one game at home that wasn't at night. It was at noon against Texas A&M, which they won. It was the last game of the season. Literally every other home game was at 7 o'clock or later. And this was my point, that there's not enough data points for this. And that is my issue. Because the SEC just refuses to put them anything other than nighttime. And if they don't put them at nighttime, it's because they're on the road. And at that point, that obviously isn't indicative on a, how their home field advantage is. Like this past year, they only had one game that wasn't at night at home. And they won 34-17 at 3:30, but it was against UCLA, a team who was coming across the country and a team who sucks, by the way. And then this, I don't know if, I know all the times are out for the upcoming schedule. But look at this. First 4 games of the season: 7:30, 7:30, 7:30, 7:45. They get to play Southeastern Louisiana at 7:45 at night. That should be a crime. They're playing Louisiana Tech at 7:30 at night. Like, oh my gosh. Is there any other? There's not any other game set, but you know, it's whatever. It looks like they'll have a noon game against Vanderbilt, but that's on the road, so doesn't matter. Now the Arkansas game, it does say should be and might be a noon game, and that's at home. So again, I mean it's Arkansas, but we'll have to see how that game goes. It'll be interesting. But I think I'm going to have LSU at 1. Their record, I have this pulled up. Their record over the last wait, did I look up? Oh, sorry. I meant to look up 2. I accidentally looked up 5. Let me see. Over the last 2 years, their record is 15-1. Yeah, 15-1. Although that doesn't sound right. I'm going to count it myself. You know what? I have this in front of me. I can literally just count it myself. Their home record is. By the way, that's not their overall record. That's their home record is 15-1. Obviously, they're not 15-1 overall in the last couple of years. If that was the case, they'd have a national championship. They lost to Alabama last year. I think that's the one home game. I think that's the one home game. Although 16 games, there should be 24, shouldn't there? And then, yeah, they've only lost one game in the past 2 years at home, and that was to Alabama last year. So we'll have LSU at the number 1 spot. Okay. I think everyone can be happy about that. At 2, though, here's the thing. As you all know, I am biased towards Georgia. Over the last, I think, 5 years, they're about 35-2. Actually, that's not right. Yes, actually, that is right. 35-2. I keep forgetting they only count the home game. This is only the home record. I keep thinking like, oh, that math doesn't math, but that's only the home record. They're 35-2. Now, obviously, there are discrepancies when you just use what their home record has been for the last however many years, because some teams are just so talented that, of course, they're going to have a good home field record, like Georgia these past few years. Like, I mean, Nick Saban under Alabama, they could have played in a parking lot and beat most teams by 30, which is why I think people overrate Alabama's home field advantage, but I digress. But again, I have to go off the experience that I have, and I'm going to put Georgia at number 2 simply because, again, I have experience with it. I think people have always underrated Sanford Stadium and the home field advantage Georgia has. Yes, we have been benefited from the fact that we have a really good team, but I think it's also fair to say that there's a lot of teams that have really good teams that have lost at home. Georgia hasn't lost a home game since 2019. Do you realize that? 2019. That's a long time ago. Now, technically speaking, they're hold on, let me see. Now, technically speaking, their overall record, I think the last 5 years is 35-2, because I think we have a loss where we were technically the home team against Florida at Jacksonville, but again, I don't know if you really count that. But as far as in Sanford Stadium, we haven't lost since 2019. You can't sit there and tell me that Alabama hasn't had good teams, that Ohio State hasn't had really good teams. They've lost at home since then. Ohio State might lose to Texas at home. Who knows? And I think that speaks to how good our team is, but that also speaks to how good, in my opinion, the crowd is. As I said, when I was at the Arkansas game, I don't remember. I think it was 3 years ago. Was it 3 years ago? It was 2 or 3 years ago. I think it was 3 years ago. Was it 4 years ago? It was a little bit ago, 3 or 4 years ago. I was at an Arkansas game at noon. College game day was there because Arkansas had started the season undefeated. They were like 4-0, 5-0, something like that. And we beat the brakes off of them. It was honestly, it might have been the loudest game I've ever been to. And it was, again, like I said, a noon game. And Holly Rowe, I think, was the sideline reporter and said that we had a higher decibel level than the Penn State whiteout game. Like, I know what Georgia fans and Sanford Stadium is capable of, and I believe that that's second. Again, fully biased, I understand. Anything after this, I kind of get, I don't know what the word I'm trying to say is. I kind of get, it's close. Well, honestly, all of this is close, but you could put so many teams at 3, at 4, at 5. I just have to decide what I want to do. And I think what I'm going to do at 3, I think I'm going to do Tennessee. You know, Tennessee in the last 5 years, keep in mind that Tennessee hasn't been very good in all those 5 years. They've had a few good seasons, not great seasons. They only made the playoff this past year. And yet their home record is still 28-8, which is good. It's around where a lot of the other ones in this list are. There are obviously ones that are better than that because they have really good teams. You know, Alabama's is obviously better than that. Ohio State's is better than that. Oregon's is better than that, but that's because they have better teams. I think Tennessee's home field advantage speaks for itself. It speaks for itself. It's never fun having to go and play Tennessee at Neyland Stadium. Tennessee fans, I can attest, are absolutely out of their minds, insane, crazy individuals. Okay? That is a reality. And I think Tennessee deserves to be in that number 3 spot. I don't like talking good about Tennessee, okay? I don't. But I believe they should be in that number 3 spot. After that, oh man. I think it's got to be another SEC team, to be honest with you. LSU, Georgia, Tennessee. I think I'm going to go Texas A&M because obviously you know about the whole 12th man thing, which is a valid thing. And I look, watching Texas A&M games, I can tell it's loud in there. There are some, games that you watch and you can just tell it is loud in there. Like when you watch an LSU night game against, let's say they're playing like Alabama or something, you can tell it's loud in there. Right? And that's how I feel when I watch Texas A&M. That's how I feel when I watch Tennessee. I can see through the TV how loud it is. And I think Texas, and again, when Texas A&M played Notre Dame, wasn't that at Texas A&M when they played Notre Dame last year? I could tell how loud it was. And I think Texas A&M deserves to be in that 4 spot. 5, I think, is where I bring in a Big Ten team, and I think that's got to be Ohio State. 31-4 in the past 5 years, which is, obviously impressive. Who are their loss? They lost to Oregon, ironically, back in 2021 at home by a touchdown. Lost to Michigan at home in 2022. Obviously lost to Michigan last year as well. And Michigan just seems to be that monkey on Ohio State's back right now, even when they're at home, which honestly has kind of made me think less of Ohio State's home field advantage. When you're facing a rival at home, I expect you to just be revving and ready to go, and I just don't feel it. I don't feel it through the TV, man. I'm telling you, you can feel stuff through the TV sometimes. I don't feel it at Ohio Stadium. Even when they're playing Michigan, I don't feel it. Um, and that just it concerns me. But their dominance at home does speak for itself, and they should still get credit for that. And I still think that they have the best home field advantage in the Big Ten, mainly because they probably have the most fans. But it is what it is. And honestly, like I can understand that Ohio State, their fans at least, they probably don't feel like they have to be crazy every single game because I mean sometimes you're facing Minnesota and Northwestern and Purdue who barely have functioning offenses. So, it is what it is. So that's top 5. At 6. Who do I want to put at 6? How about this? So 6, 7, 8. We have 5 teams left. I'll tell you who the 5 are. No particular order. The last 5 are Clemson, Alabama, Florida, Michigan, and Oregon. So 2 Big Ten teams, an ACC team, and 2 SEC teams. I think Florida has a better home field than Alabama. Call me crazy, but that's what I believe. But does Florida have a better one than Clemson? Because I'd probably put Clemson over Michigan and Oregon. I think Florida does have a better one. I'll put Florida at 6. The Swamp is iconic. Now, as a Georgia fan, I really don't have much experience with the Swamp because we always play in Jacksonville. But the Swamp is undeniably iconic. First of all, it's a cool name. And second of all, Florida hasn't been very good these past 5 years. And they still have a 24-12 home record. Now, is 24-12 great? No. But for how bad they've been, it's not that bad. And they've had a lot of close losses at home, too. I mean, back in 2020, they played Alabama at home. Only lost by a touchdown. They played LSU at home. Only lost by 3. They played, in 2021, played Alabama at home again. Only lost by 2. That has a UGA game, but again, that was in Jacksonville, so I'm not going to count that. They did lose to UCF at home, which is not ideal. They lost to Kentucky at home. Lost to LSU at home. Again, a lot of these losses, like it feels like half of these losses are Alabama and LSU, which is understandable. And again, in that 24-12, it's counting when they've lost to Georgia at being the home team in Jacksonville. So have to take that into account as well. So like half of these losses are LSU, Georgia, and Alabama. So, it's not that bad, actually. But Florida's good at home. They always have been. And I think they deserve to be number 6. At 7, I think I'll go Oregon. Actually, no. I'll go Clemson. I'll go Clemson at 7. Obviously, the rundown at the beginning of their games it's cool to watch. Dabo Swinney always tries to be a try-hard and make it down before anyone else. Like he's going to recess like a weirdo, but it is what it is. They're 29-7 in the past 5 years. With their losses at home being to good teams. Ohio State, Georgia, Florida State when they were that undefeated season, Tennessee, South Carolina. So again, it's not like they've lost to like Florida lost to UCF, but I think Clemson has I think their home field advantage is good. I think there's very few teams that have like an elite home field advantage, Right now we're in the tier of you have a good to great home field advantage. I'd be slightly concerned having to go to your stadium and play you. At 8, I'm gonna go Oregon. I've heard that Oregon is very rowdy, very hard to play at. Um, and I like Oregon, so I'm putting them at 8. So how about that? I sure like them more than Alabama, so deal with it. Um, at 9, we'll go Alabama. Should they be higher? Maybe. I don't really care because I don't like you. And I think it speaks volumes that when Nick Saban was the head coach at Alabama, there were multiple times where he had to challenge the fan base to actually show up to games. And you're going to sit here and you're going to tell me you're a top 5 home field advantage? Oh, please, cry me a river. Go kick rocks. I'm not about to hear that nonsense. Not about to hear that nonsense at all. And then at 10, I'm going Michigan. 1, because they're cheaters and they don't deserve to be any higher than 10. And 2, I think they're terrible people. I think Michigan fans, not all of them, but probably a majority, are terrible people. And I don't know. I think their home field is probably fine. Again, if Georgia went to go play at Michigan, I don't think I'd be that worried. I'm just going to keep it a buck. And that's the top 10 with the 2 honorable mentions. No, I don't want to hear from Texas fans that I should have put Texas in the top 10. Georgia went into your crib and stomped you, bro. Like, shut up. Shut up, bro. I don't want to hear about Oklahoma. Your team sucks. Although they're going to be better this year. So we'll see. Maybe, hey, look, if Michigan comes into town and you're rowdy and you're fired up, I can feel it through the TV. Maybe I'll consider you for next year. Maybe Oklahoma. Doubt it, but maybe. Who else is going to be angry? Ole Miss is probably going to be angry, please. Lane Kiffin, you've shown up while Lane Kiffin's been here. Every other time, please. Please. Embarrassment. South Carolina, you're all right pregame, but if I have to hear that stupid Gamecock do his little squabble thing for the 50 billionth time while I'm watching a South Carolina game, I'm going to lose my mind. Okay, like that little squabble thing from the Gamecock after every first down, or because I feel like they do it every first down. That automatically you'll never be in the top 10 until you get rid of it. You are banned from the top 10 until you get rid of it. I know a lot of people like to put Wisconsin. Look, you have jump around and that's it. Your team blows. Okay, I don't want to hear about Wisconsin and their home field advantage. They do jump around. That's all they have. Virginia Tech, they're an entrance and that's it. Don't even get me started. See, now I'm going. Who else is going to be angry? I'm sure there'll be a Big 12 team who's going to be angry. What about Colorado? Stop. Just stop. Oklahoma State does have a pretty good home field advantage, but not good enough. I'd probably put Kentucky ahead of Oklahoma State. Let's be real. Arkansas, by the way, underrated home field advantage. Just putting that out there. If their team was better, look out. Is there anyone else I need to crash out on? I've heard Washington has a pretty good home field advantage. Meh. That's all I got to say about it. Meh. But yeah, that's the top 10. What am I going to be talking about next week? I have no idea because it's July. It's July and football needs to be here already. I'll find something to talk about, though. I always do for next week. I think, actually, not SEC, but we've had some media day stuff going on. So maybe if there's some news coming out of these media days for these conferences, then maybe I'll have something to talk about if Dion or someone with the SEC says something stupid, but which they always do. But we'll see. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope everyone has a great day. Don't forget to go out there and be great.